Broncos country, what is poppin'? How you guys doing, man? Hope you guys are having a wonderful, wonderful day so far. It's your boy Mark here, Marcky Sports Man, and the Broncos, it looks like our 90-man roster heading into the offseason program is complete. Obviously, this is always subject to change, and there's going to be a lot of different roster moves when it is all said and done, even before training camp. But we went through the rookie mini camp. We brought in some of the rookie tryouts, which in the past have not normally stuck on to the team and signed as undrafted free agents, but that has changed this year. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what it looks like and if there's any of these moves that are pretty significant and some things that really stood out to me that we really need to keep an eye on heading into the offseason program with minicamp starting here in a couple of weeks. And then ultimately into training camp, which starts, as we know, kind of in late July. So let's get into it, guys. Like and subscribe if you're not already. If you love Denver sports, love to have you join the channel, interact with me in the comments, join the community. It's always a fun thing. So what do we got? We got the Broncos official 90-man roster, and there was some surprising moves, man. I was happy to see them really branch out, bring in some of the undrafted free agents back. They released some of the ones that they originally signed and replaced them with some of the workout players that we have as well. And so just breaking down some of those moves here, you can see that the Broncos went out and they signed a veteran tight end in Cole Fotheringham, right? This is a player who has a little bit of experience playing in the NFL. I think he was last with the Las Vegas Raiders. He is another Utah tight end. We obviously seem to be very fond of him. And yeah, I mean, 6'4", 243 pounds. He's got one career catch. He's mainly been a special teams type of a player in his career so far. He's 27 years old, but they wanted to add to that tight end room. And as a corresponding move, they essentially released Thomas Yasmin, who was on the practice squad last year. I do expect for him to come back because he does get the international player exemption. But right now they gave that exemption to Jeremy Crawshaw. And because it is kind of allows for us to have 91 players instead of 90, I think eventually once we start to trim it down, he's a player. You can essentially bring him back to the team for free. Because you don't have to use one of the 90-man roster spots. So I expect Thomas Yasmin to be somebody that's back. And they wanted to see what they got in Cole Fotheringham. And it's interesting because they, aside from Caleb Lohner, who they drafted in the 7th round, and Evan Ingram, they haven't addressed the tight end room as much as I thought they would. So I think for me, that shows that they're pretty comfortable with some of the guys that they got there. And they really want to see how this camp battles shake out, how these guys look to be able to build up depth behind them. But high alert for a lot of these tight end players. Check out Kodiak Broncos podcast and David Talk Sports. They had both talked about some guys that are on the roster bubble. And I agree with everything that they had said when it comes to some of the guys that are really going to be put on notice. Of all of these other players that were signed, we also signed inside linebacker Jordan Turner. Now, he was a player that was brought in as a as a kind of a workout guy. He wasn't officially signed as an undrafted free agent. And Sean Payton made sure to come out and say he was someone that really caught his attention, that looked really good. And ultimately that resulted in him signing an undrafted free agent contract. So good for him. I love the underdog stories. He's a little bit of an undersized linebacker at 6'1", 231. But, he played a few years at Wisconsin. So I don't know if he has a little bit of history with the secondary coach that we got here. But in addition, after that, he played this most recent season at Michigan State. And he's an interesting player, man. He seems like somebody that's got quite a bit of upside and didn't play a whole lot this past season when he was with Michigan. But he was productive in the times that he did play. And he obviously popped. So you're adding to that inside linebacker room into the depth behind the, main guys that are going to be competing behind Dre Greenlaw, right? So you got Drew Sanders, obviously. You've got Alex Singleton. You still got Lavelle Bailey from last season. We added Kareem Reed as one of the undrafted free agents. And so you're going to bring in Jordan Turner to go in there and compete too. So I like the fact that we added to that room. And surprisingly, we brought back long snapper Zach Triner. I know he's a very experienced long snapper. We brought him back originally because Mitchell Fabroni was dealing with some sort of an injury. I thought maybe he, projected to be good heading into camp, but it seems like them bringing back Zach Triner was a signal that maybe he's not. So is what it is. I don't think we'll have a long snapper competition when it's all said and done. I think he's just an extra camp body and somebody that's really experienced. But he seems like even if he was going to be the guy for the season, he's going to be just fine. The one that I was the most intrigued by was wide receiver Kyrese White out of Utah State. This guy played opposite of Jalen Royals. Didn't really get a lot of the hype, but he was a pretty productive player this past season for Utah State. Somebody that I think he had about 44 catches just off the top, over 500 yards and about 3 touchdowns. The reason that I'm intrigued by Kyrese White is because when you look at somebody like him, right, 5'10", 185 pounds, he's strictly a slot receiver. He's somebody that they were just saying, man, he was getting open. He was also a tryout player that they had brought in, really caught the attention of the Broncos coaching staff. And again, what's intriguing about him is that he plays a certain type of role in your receiver room that we don't really have. We don't have a lot of clarity there. Like, yes, we could put Devon Bailey in the slot. Yes, Marvin Mims can win in the slot as well, which I'd like to see. But as a true slot receiver, we don't really have that. And I don't really know how utilized it is in a Sean Payton offense, given the history. But the fact that he brings that unique skill set, someone that is quick twitch, seems to get open, I'm excited about that. I love the competition that we have in this wide receiver room. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the back end of that roster ends up ultimately shaking out, because it's going to be a good one. But you look at the game log, bring it back into college. Yeah, you can see this. This past season, uber productive. And Utah State, man, I watched quite a bit of Utah State when I was doing work on Jalen Royals in the offseason. Their quarterback was terrible. Their passing offense was terrible. So for him to be the wide receiver 2 there, still get some decent production, is very, very interesting. So a player that I'm very intrigued by. But yeah, definitely the seasons before, not very much production. So really a player that popped off with 1 year, could be very much ascending. But I am excited, man. I'm excited to see what he can bring ultimately to this team. As a result of bringing in these guys, they actually parted ways with undrafted free agent Kendall Bowler, right? He was a corner that they had brought in. Not overly surprising. It seems like him and RJ Harvey, I think, were pretty close. They kind of had a history together, but they ended up moving on from him. The cornerback room is just really stacked. And then Christian Dowell, somebody that I was a little bit surprised about, because he was that big nose tackle, true like 340-pound guy, but from a really, really small college. So they just seems like they didn't see enough from him. And then, as we said, tight end Thomas Yasmin, and then linebacker KJ Cloyd. We signed him late in the season. He signed a futures contract. We ended up moving on from him. So they liked what they saw in Jordan Turner, and obviously with the other guys in the inside linebacker room, ultimately deciding to go on from KJ Cloyd. So, the 7 guys that we had drafted in the NFL draft are obviously going to make it, and the rest of the undrafted free agents that we didn't talk about getting released are going to make it on the roster as well. And so we've got some clarity. We got some clarity going in. Now, here are some things that really stand out to me. I think the biggest thing is, I guess before the draft and everything started, I thought the Broncos would have kind of a overhaul at the tight end and at the running back positions. And while we did we added RJ Harvey, who, by all accounts and by all reports, looked extremely impressive so far. Obviously, you can see how well built he is. They obviously seem to be pretty optimistic and have some big plans for Audric Estime. Excited to see what he can do in year 2. What's nice about this is if RJ Harvey can just take a grasp of the RB1 role, you don't have to put so much pressure on Audric Estime being an unbelievably productive back. He's just got to be a solid RB2, somebody that can go out there and be productive in the touches that he gets. It's probably going to be about 35-40% of the snaps, if you take into account the history of Sean Payton. And I like that role for him. I'm a lot more optimistic about Audric Estime than I think a lot of people are. I think he had a lot of unfortunate circumstances take place, some self-inflicted, some beyond his control. But, we can't forget the fact that he's 20 years old, man, very young player. And he's going to have a lot of room to grow. I think he's, the fumbling issues, I think it's something that he's going to be able to clean up. But I like the way that he's built. I like some vision things that I had seen from him. And like I said, as an RB2 role, he's going to be good. Mixing in Jaleel McLaughlin, Blake Watson, Tyler Bidet and company, I think it's going to be a really fun running back room. And let's not forget, we always got a couple guys in the back pocket that we can bring in that are veterans that if you need them to be play a very specific role in this offense, they can do it. Mainly Jamal Williams. He's someone that stands out to me. Elite pass blocker. Yes, he's an older guy, but like I said, you're bringing him in similar to how you brought in Samaje Perine a couple of years ago to just be like a third down pass protecting role, maybe somebody that can catch the ball to the backfield. He can be productive. Nick Chubb, if you're looking for a an RB2, a second, just pure runner that can give you some good limited touches. He's somebody that's available. And then J.K. Dobbins, there's still a way for us to be able to get somebody like him as well. But I expect for the team to wait. I think we should wait. Let these guys get the reps. Let them battle it out. Let's see how they look in camp before we ultimately make any moves. But it is going to be the RJ Harvey show, guys. Let's not, let's not make any excuses about it. He is going to be RB1. There's really no doubt about it. You can tell Sean Payton kind of fell in love with him, not just during the draft process, but with what he saw at rookie minicamp. So hoping that he can pop, hoping that he can look really good throughout camp, get better, and most importantly, stay healthy throughout that time, because we are going to be relying on him heavily based off of all of the reports and everything that I've heard and I've seen. So, the running back room is going to be very interesting. And same with the tight end room, right? The back end of it. I mean, I think Cole Fotheringham, I think Caleb Lohner are going to have legitimate opportunities to earn some playing time this upcoming season with not much guys in front of them. The way that the room is really shaking out to be is Evan Ingram's going to be the bona fide number one. Adam Troutman's going to be your second tight end, who's going to be mainly a blocker, mixed in with Nate Atkins. Nate Atkins obviously can do a lot of things when it comes to blocking, and you can utilize him in certain packages, particularly in the red zone as a receiver, but he's kind of the guy that can get down and dirty. I think it's going to lead to the demise ultimately of Lucas Kroll, who I really wish I would have seen him develop. It just seemed like it didn't happen last year. And then, the two guys we talked about, right? Cole Fotheringham and Caleb Lohner, they're going to be able to make up that tight end room, and we're going to have to see where that goes. Evan Ingram, because I hope he stays healthy, because we know what we're going to get with him, and then we'll kind of see how the rest of that tight end room ultimately shakes out. The one positional group that I'm very confused about, but I'm really looking forward to seeing how it ultimately plays out, is wide receiver. Because I feel like the wide receiver room, very similar to how it was last year, has like Cortland Sutton and then not really a lot of clarity. A bunch of guys that are like very intriguing, have a lot of potential that I really like. It's just going to see how it ultimately shakes out. And I think it's going to come to the point at the end of camp where we might find ourselves parting ways with some very talented, high upside players. We could ultimately trade maybe a receiver or two, because we're really, really stacked there. It's just we don't have the clear vision of what it is. If I had to guess now, I would say obviously Cortland Sutton's going to be wide receiver one, opposite of Pat Bryant, who's going to be wide receiver two. He's going to be the pure X that can play some Z, some blocking, some of the short to intermediate routes, kind of like what little Jordan Humphrey did last year. I think Vele will be more of a rotational guy that they could use to spell Pat Bryant or Cortland Sutton, because that's what he does. They might utilize him in the slot as a big slot, but probably not. We cannot forget about Marvin Mims. He's been ascending every single year. He is a playmaker, and what I would like to see him in is I want him to be our pure slot receiver, someone that we could move around, play in the slot mainly. He can take snaps out of the backfield and kind of still run routes. He's kind of your gadget guy. Get the ball in his hands, let him go out there and make plays. I love that. I think Troy Franklin can be your designated deep ball guy, someone that's maybe not going to get a lot of catches, but imperative to the way the offense works, depending on his development. And then it's just going to be a lot of other guys battling it out for special teams, for practice squad type of roles as well. But I'm interested to see. I think we've got a lot of guys now. Like we're very good. We don't have to worry about like the Michael Bandys of the world being on our practice squad as somebody that, we're just kind of desperate to fill in those roles. We can use a lot of the undrafted free agent guys that we had brought in, like the Joaquin Davis, Jerwan Newton, obviously Kyrese White that we had just talked about, to really go out there and battle it out. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And it's going to be something to also pay attention to is Cortland Sutton deal going to get done? Is it going to get done before OTAs? before minicamp and all that start here in a couple weeks? Is it going to be something that gets done between mandatory minicamp and the training camp? Is it going to bleed into it? I don't know. And I'm going to do a completely separate, dedicated video to the Cortland Sutton situation to kind of talk about, where it's going to be, because it's actually a lot more confusing than you think. And based on how a lot of these guys perform, it could get messy. It could get really, really messy there when it comes to the Broncos and Cortland Sutton and their relationship. Because I think we have other guys to sign and extend, particularly Zach Allen and Nick Bonito, that in my opinion are priorities over somebody like Cortland Sutton as it stands right now. And as it's not about what you say, it's about what you do. And the actions show that this front office is really trying to dedicate as many resources as they can to having a very good defense and trusting that these young guys can develop and that Sean Payton can get the most out of what he's got there on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm very curious to see what that ultimately leads to. But that's going to be the 90-man roster, guys. I'm excited. I cannot wait for Broncos football, man. The offseason program is still always fun. The hardest part of this time of the year, I think, for us football fans is when mandatory minicamp ends and you got that 6-week gap until training camp. It's like, what do we do with our lives? But we'll figure it out. We'll put some content out. We'll have some fun with it, and we will wait patiently as we always do. Anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts below. Who's intriguing to you? Who are you really looking forward to see? And what positional battle groups? That's what I want to know. What positional battle groups are you the most excited about looking forward to? I'll put out a dedicated video for Cortland Sutton and also positional group intrigue going into training camp. All right, y'all. Appreciate you, man. Have a wonderful day. Go Broncos. And until the next video.